Recording. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the LGC webinar series. Today's presentation is EPA's Greener Summer Cleaning Tips for School Facility Departments. To give you a few tips on how to participate today, first off, you want to open and close the panel on the right-hand side. You'll press the orange button. That will allow you to open and close that. This will allow you better access and ability to see the presentation versus seeing your panel. Next is, throughout the presentation, you can submit text questions in the question box. We will address all questions and answers, take care of questions and answers at the end of today's presentation. If you're having any technical difficulties, please do submit the question. We do review the questions throughout the entire presentation. So if we see that many of you are having issues with having access to the presentation, we'll take care of that and help you out. And the last is the hand-raising feature. Because we're not here present in a typical traditional classroom setting, we may ask you to raise your hand. For instance, we may ask the question out there, how many schools currently have a policy in place for green cleaning? And we would have you all press that hand-raising feature, and then we could report back to the presenters to let them know what percentage are actually using that. No need to do that now, though. Today's presentation is brought to you by the following. You have myself, Tim Parsons, as your moderator from New Hampshire Local Government Center. In addition, we have Eugene Benoit from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Specifically, he does the IAQ, the Indoor Air Quality Tools for Schools Coordinator position. And then lastly, we have Peter Johnson, who is the Maintenance Manager for the Concord School District. You'll hear from Eugene and Peter throughout this presentation, providing you some excellent tips on how to keep your school running well throughout the summer months. Just a little bit about the New Hampshire Partners for Healthy Schools. It's a group of like-minded organizations and individuals that work together to provide schools throughout the state of New Hampshire the opportunity to gain expertise on how to keep their schools' indoor air quality clean and healthy. In addition, the presentation today is housed at Local Government Center. Local Government Center is the not-for-profit home of New Hampshire Municipal Association, the Property Liability Trust, and the Health Trust. The Property Liability Trust specifically provides services to schools, towns, and quasi-municipalities to help them protect and maintain their properties and to protect their employees on the job as well. Now I'm going to pass the presentation over to Eugene and Peter. Take it away.
Thank you, Tim. I should also mention that LGC has been really great in hosting our meetings here with the Partners for Healthy Schools. Also, they have a lot of workshops here and conferences for schools. So, on behalf of the partners, thanks, Tim, for being a great host here. As Tim mentioned, I'm Eugene Benoit. I'm the Tools for Schools Coordinator for the EPA New England region. I'm also the Tribal Air Coordinator. I'm also on the regional asthma team. And I would say my primary job, though, is promoting EPA's Indoor Quality Tools for Schools program. And you can see this is a picture of what it looks like. And according to New Hampshire legislation that was recently passed, a part of what you are required to do in terms of improving and maintaining indoor air quality in schools is to have this kit, and there will be some information later on how to go about ordering it. Of course, it's also available online. There's also a CD-ROM of it, and so on. So let me just go through some of the very basic steps of this before we get to the summer tips. These are the basic steps of implementing the Tools for Schools program. And you can see that the very first step is to assemble an IAQ team, and you can see who the members are of that team. The very first action item you do to implement the kit would be to distribute the checklists that are in the kit, and there are various checklists, one for the teacher, one for each teacher. There's a ventilation checklist. There's also video information, on how to go about filling out these checklists and so on. And then once all of that information is collected through the checklist, then a walkthrough investigation is conducted based on the findings from the checklist. And then once all that information is, so to speak, on the table, what did we get from the checklist, what did we find out from the walkthrough investigation, then priorities are set and actions are taken to improve indoor air quality or maintain indoor air quality. So these are the basic steps of Tools for Schools. And of course, the partners as well as the EPA offers training on Tools for Schools, so we can help you with every step of the way. And the two main strategies for keeping good indoor air quality in schools is ventilation and source control. And in terms of ventilation, we follow the ASHRAE guidelines, the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers, and they suggest that during occupancy that every classroom should have 15 cubic feet of fresh air per person per minute. And then in an office environment, it's 20 cubic feet per person per minute. And of course, that's the ideal situation. And you can see here there's a gentleman holding a flow hood, and it's put right on an air diffuser, and there's a hot wire anemometer, which is the kind of the method here used to see how much fresh air is coming into a classroom. We're not advocating that every school have one like this, but there are, this is a good way to determine if you are getting enough fresh air in the school. And then the other thing that we really have to pay attention to is source control of pollutants. I mean, these are the two really important ways to control things. And there are so many pollutant sources in schools. I mean, you have VOCs coming from cleaning products. You have asthma triggers from moldy carpeting. You have radon. But I would say arguably the most important thing to control in a school environment is uncontrolled water. I mean, we don't consider that a pollutant per se, but it leads to so many other problems in school. So maintaining moisture control in a school is really, I think, one of the most important things, especially when we talk about the summer.
And Peter, what are some of the, from your experience working as a maintenance manager, what are some of the other sources that you find that contribute to this poor indoor air quality?
Well, I think one of the things that I find most, is household plants brought in will trigger a lot of the asthma problems that kids have. And in the state of New Hampshire right now, it's 1 in 4 children that go to school have some sort of breathing asthma problem. And as you can see in this picture, the household plants sitting on top of the unit ventilator and just the clutter in the classrooms. As Eugene was saying, the moisture that can infiltrate into a classroom from overwatering a plant, or on the other side, underwatering a plant, so it becomes very dry and the soils are dry. It tends to cause breathing problems for children, and indoor air quality is probably the biggest hot button issue we have right now. So roof leaks, faucets that drip underneath the sinks, I mean, all that stuff has to be looked at on a regular basis, especially during downtimes, vacations in summer. We tend to clean a room or clean an area of a building, and then we move on. Lots of schools have summer programs, and so you're in and out of there. But a lot of that regular daily maintenance can be forgotten. And that's one thing I would stress, is that really try to keep an eye on that. Look underneath your sinks and check your ceilings and the heating systems that are maybe off. Valves tend to dry out and start to drip a little bit, and things like that. So it's really important to keep that in mind, even when you're probably going, okay, I've got 50 days to get the school ready for the next school year. So that can sometimes be slipped through the cracks. So that's really what I would do. So really take a look at what has to be done daily, and don't forget about it during the summer.
So having plants like this sitting on a heating system, does that essentially, because all things live and die,
Right.
So does that essentially turn it into a giant particle distributor?
Well, it can. I mean, I know that people love to have plants in their classrooms and house plants, and it does. I mean, you got to figure that your plant, you water it, the soil dries out, it gets in, the leaves or the plant material fall down, they deteriorate, they become compost. There's all these things that, if you're going to have plants, make sure that they're watered well. I would even mist them weekly. I know that it's hard to do on a custodial staff, but what that does is that it will help keep the dust and the mites and things like that down the best you can.
So I think there's definitely a role for teachers here. I mean,
Yes.
I think one of our recommendations, of course, is not to have plants in the classroom because
That's correct.
they need, they're high maintenance basically. And you can see here, I mean, just first of all, the plants on this unit ventilator is blocking the ventilation. But then if it's overwatered, you have water drip down, it's going to contaminate the unit. And if it's too dry, it's going to create a bacterial problem in the air. So, from EPA's point of view, we say no plants.
Yeah,
in
and
the
that would be
classroom,
what
and
I
no
would-
animals in the classroom,
Right.
basically. But you can see there's a lot of clutter in this classroom. I mean, I think one thing for summer tips is making sure that teachers bring home their plants. They bring home any kind of food that they might have. They get rid of the clutter that
Correct.
could be a problem.
Correct.
For
The end of the year is a great time to do housekeeping.
exactly. So let's get right into the summer tips. That was still a bit of of an introduction, but we certainly talked about some of the tips. But I think, certainly high time, I mean, really a great time now to talk about this because, as you know, Peter, a lot of schools are just sitting there kind of idle during the summer. Maybe the lights are off, the ventilation rates are really either zero or very, very minimal. And of course, some schools, are used during the summer,
Right.
maybe for like summer camp. I mean, what's been your experience?
Well, in Concord, we are lucky enough to have 3 new elementary schools being opened in the fall. We're in the process of moving into them now that are LEED certified schools. So, but there are also a lot of districts that have schools that don't have ventilation. I mean, that was my experience with the 4 or 5 elementary schools that were closing. They had very little or poor or no ventilation at all. So the ventilation was opening the window.
Yeah.
And with that being said, if you can look, this is a great picture. It probably reminds us all of the classroom we've seen, I'm sure, is that you have to look at what you have and plan accordingly for that. If you have a ventilation system, make sure that it operates when you're in the cleaning process. Some school districts have, we have summer school most of July into the first week of August. That usually takes up a third of one of our schools, so you have to work around that. You also have to think about, if you don't have a ventilation system, that you have proper drying equipment available, floor fans and things like that, and then you use the proper procedure, as little moisture as possible, cleaning carpets.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't have upholstered furniture that's brought into your buildings. Again, that's another summer cleaning tip that I would say, if a teacher or professional has brought in that type of furniture, it's going to be very difficult to do, but ask them to take it home.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that I would like to see is a policy about not bringing in upholstered furniture into the classrooms.
And also, they should be helping out too. I mean, I see here the kids put their chairs on their desk. That allows for the custodial staff to clean up. Of course, this looks like during school, and there's a lot of paperwork here. It looks like some kind of margarine here. But there's a lot that, the maintenance crew does a lot. But
they do, but you can't clean that. How are you going to clean that?
Exactly.
So that's really,
good housekeeping.
Housekeeping is huge. If this time of year you can get the building principals, administrators, the people that need to be on board to say, most of us have probably just ended school, or maybe we've been out for a week or so you really just start to get into the swing of things. There's a lot of moving and packing and all those things that go on. I would say that one of the tip is get the housekeeping part into this first week, or whenever the teachers are there, until they're there to get the stuff out of there that they don't use.
Yeah, exactly. And you also mentioned controlling moisture, and this is like the first tip from our summer tips fact sheet about making sure that let's say you don't wet vac during the summertime when you have high humidity like today. I mean, this is probably the most important tip from our fact sheet, is really controlling the moisture to not have a mold form when kids go back to school.
Gene, you're absolutely correct. even on tile floors, you want to make sure that you get up all the moisture that when you put them down. But definitely carpets. When you're cleaning carpets, if the humidity level is up around, 60, I'd love to say if it's above 60, don't do it, but you'd never get anything done. So you have to make sure that if it's really humid, if your dew point is up around 70, 72, if you can get away without doing carpets in that period of time, don't. Also look at the equipment you're using. Are you putting on a lot of moisture? A lot of the new extraction equipment they have and carpet machines they have use very little moisture. I'm not going to plug any particular brand because there's a lot out there that do that, and I know that budgets are tough for everybody, and well, the carpet machine's not in the budget this year, so just be aware. Make sure that you maintain your equipment too if you can. There's a lot of great companies out there that will come in and make sure that your equipment is working properly. Moisture is just going to cause you more problems than from mold to rotted material to just maintenance headaches. So if at all possible, and I know that there's probably a lot of you out there saying right,
they love their carpets, but
carpets are they're quiet for the classroom. They're nice for the kids to sit on. But they can be a maintenance headache. So,
well, I know in like basement areas, if you have carpeting in basement areas and then you have boxes on top of that, you're asking for a mold problem.
You are. So that's where you just need to really watch that moisture control.
And doing the check, I think, once a week, during the summer.
Absolutely.
Is probably a very good idea.
Yes, it is.
And here's a picture of stained ceiling tiles. You can see there's probably maybe a roof leak here. Who knows how extensive that mold problem is in the plenum, above the ceiling tiles. And then you have maybe water dripping down, who knows, inside the wall. A big concern about mold is hidden mold, which you really can't see. So that's a big issue. And, of course, this is like really high up to the ceiling here. Maybe that's like violating some kind of, what do you call it, maybe too high. It's supposed to have like maybe 1 foot or so of space between the ceiling and
that's difficult. That looks to me like a leak that either was severe, that has just happened, or if it's been going on, that's just, you got to take a look at it. And maintenance of buildings and facilities is just an ongoing budget cutting system, and understandably so. Budgets get cut for everything in public schools, but you really need to stay on top of that type of stuff. At least find out what's the source of that leak, and get to it as quickly as possible.
And what we learned in a previous webinar is that there needs to be, according to New Hampshire Fire Code, there needs to be 18 inches of clearance between the ceiling and the next highest shelf. So
it's actually between the sprinkler itself.
The sprinkler, yes, that's
it's
correct.
Supposed to be 18 inches away from that. So we try not to store stuff at the top, because then it does make it easier that if you do have an issue with a leak or some sort of problem with the building, it's a little easier to get to it when it's not having to move a lot of material. So we try to, again, suggest not to store anything on the upper shelves. A lot of times we'll just take them upper shelf off. So the upper shelf is now the second shelf. So
I see.
it's, again, there's just a lot of challenges that we face, but one of those is to keep water from getting into your building.
Right. And then another challenge is, of course, VOCs from chemical products, from cleaning products, storage, storing chemicals properly in containers, and, not buying more than you need. I think the general rule of thumb is when you buy products that are needed in school, just the quantity you need. Look at them. Are they non-toxic or maybe low VOC? And, we were talking earlier about, the cleaning products that you use, in Concord Public Schools, and I think you even held a webinar, a conference there, I remember a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we did
so.
with Carol Westinghouse. She was with a group named Inform, but now she's on her own, and I apologize for not knowing the name of her company. But, we had in Concord, I would say we're probably 95% green right now. It took a while. It's change is tough, but it really, I believe, has helped. I've been working, excuse me, a little bit with the school nurses to see if it's actually improved absenteeism in the school. It's a tough thing to track because it's just something that takes a lot of time and resources to do that. But I know from the custodial side, they much appreciate, as you can see on this side, that Green Seal certified and the
Right.
US EPA are the two of the three certifications that you can have. And doing that changeover, I believe I know it's helped my absenteeism as far as on the maintenance and custodial side. You're not using harsh chemicals anymore. You're using biodegradables. You're using hydrogen peroxide, probably is one of the biggest ones that are out there now. We have non-chemical cleaners. You can have, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it adds an extra oxygen molecule to water, and it turns it into a sanitizer for 4 hours. And it's just water, and that's all it is. So you can spray it, you can use it. I'd highly suggest that. I mean, it's definitely going to help in the long run during the school year and during the summertime. You're using less harmful chemicals, so you're not putting as much, VOCs and toxins into the air and into the environment. So.
Do you find that the summertime is usually when schools do a lot of renovation
Absolutely.
work and do repairs? And I mean, one thing is for the workers, like during the summertime, I mean, to use like non-toxic paints, use proper ventilation.
Yeah, we use all low VOC or non-VOC paints that we use that we can, when we can. But that's probably 90% of what we do. But yeah, absolutely, that's when the renovating, cleaning happens, stripping of floors and doing all that. To be honest, the green cleaning strippers and so forth right now are not that good. I don't want to beat up anybody, but the cleaning chemicals, the daily cleaning and that, they work pretty well. And if someone out there can tell me about a good green stripper, I'm glad to hear about it. Excuse me. But it's definitely, that's when, because there's so much renovation going on, that you really need to watch your moisture control and how much you're putting down, because forever more was better, but it's not now. If it says a gallon of water, use a gallon of water. Don't go crazy.
Yeah. Well, here's 3 more tips from Summer Tips, and you can see that. I mean, these are, I think, general tips about maintaining your combustion appliances. Making sure that they're vented to the outside. Make sure that when you're going to clean carpeting, I mean, you have to keep in mind wet carpeting and no ventilation, and let's say no lighting. You're going to have mold. So I mean, this is really important.
That's why without ventilation, mechanical ventilation in your building, you absolutely have to have drying equipment.
Yeah.
And it's just because you're going to see that. You'll smell it, and as soon as you can smell it, you're in trouble.
Right. And also, I think checking the roofs, because I mean, during the summertime, you have a lot of heavy rain. Sometimes the tropical air moves in. You got like a few days of rain sometime. And then, of course, the damage from the wintertime because of all the snow on the roof. You never know what damage that caused. And then I think you'll really see that like during the summertime. So, I mean, this is something that I think it's, part of the summertime inspection is to check the roofs, check for leaks.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
you actually have to almost treat it like it's a regular school day.
Yeah.
Don't give up on your daily walk around your buildings and things like that. You want to stay on top of what's going on, because we'll clean an area of a building and we're time short and move on. But have someone in your staff, whether rotated, however you want to do it, because it's a different time of year. So go through the rooms, open them up in the morning. If nobody's in the building, open up a few windows if there's no ventilation in your building. Or keep the classroom door open. Where you've been in and you've cleaned, and maybe you've done some painting, say, you want to leave that open as long as you possibly can, especially in older buildings that you don't have mechanical ventilation.
But, I feel there's always a tug of war between, like, the cost of running equipment during the summertime and then, of course, looking at trying to maintain good indoor air quality. I mean, it costs money to run a ventilation system during the summertime when no one's there. But, we recommend that it's worth the money to run, a few cubic feet of air per minute, maybe per classroom. Just keep the air circulating, because just stagnant air and any moisture is going to create mold.
Absolutely.
So I don't know exactly the right balance, but it's something you have to.
It's something you do. You have to find that balance of what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
We look at all the time. You have the indoor air quality and the tips on keeping your building healthy, good air quality.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, you have to look at, I'm trying to save energy, and I'm trying to, like I said, here in Concord, we're very fortunate to have these three new LEED certified elementary schools. The high school's in good shape. The middle school just had a new renovation to it. There are other schools have ventilation systems in them. So, we're fortunate enough to have that, but you do have to say, where does it stand between good air quality and the energy costs that we have to encounter when we do that? Right. So what we do is we'll look at occupancy levels. That's what I'll do here, and I think a lot of facilities people throughout that I know do the same thing. They'll look at, okay, I've got summer school from 8 o'clock in the morning until noontime in this area. Well, I have a ventilation system. Well, I'm going to run it for maybe a half hour before they come in and a half hour after they leave. You have to think of that. Okay, now the people have gone. Well, now you have custodial staff that might be in a building, and they deserve to have fresh air and all that other thing too. So
absolutely,
it is a fine balance. But the biggest thing is the housekeeping, as another picture comes up on the next slide. Your air filters that you have, make sure that they're in good shape and that they're not crushed, and that they're doing their job to catch the particulates that are in the air. Replacing the burnt out light bulbs in your fixtures and making necessary repairs to that. They all go hand in hand, and it's very difficult to change that habit. That's a habit.
Yeah.
That the way that person,
clutter.
Yeah. The way that it is, and I mean, my desk is probably like that too sometimes.
I think we're all guilty.
But it's knowledge. In the beginning, the Tools for Schools kit. We use them here in Concord. Every single school has one. We've all been trained on how to use them. I use them all the time.
Yeah. We
use it all the time. I have a smell in my room. How do you go?
There's a lot of tips in there, not just like summer tips, but just general tips on, for example, like with filter replacement. We recommend changing filters out every season, 4 times a year. And of course, the filters are really there to protect the equipment. I mean, everyone thinks, oh, let's put in HEPA filtration. I mean, the ventilation system usually can't handle filters of that grade. I mean, that's usually used in vacuuming equipment when you're doing rugs. Right. But, you want to have pretty, high efficiency filters to take out some of the larger particles. Keep the ventilation system clean. I mean, if you keep a ventilation system clean, it's going to deliver good air quality. If it gets dirty, if it gets wet inside of the air handling unit, for example, or the ductwork, you can have a potential mold problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're hitting kind of on a year-round issue, but really to the summer tips, for me, my tip is don't forget about it. Because that's what happens. Like I said it earlier, people go, we do an area, we're done with it, we leave, we shut the windows, we shut the door, and the ventilation system gets turned off, and that's okay as long as someone goes back there to check it, at least weekly. Go in, oh, well, geez, wow, it still seems like it's a little moist in here, and look around what's going on.
I see.
One moment, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Sometimes we have minor technical difficulties and our slides won't advance. So
okay, there we go.
You.
Well, this is a return vent here. You can see that, it's pretty caked over with fibers. Probably a lot of that is like fibers from clothing and dust and so on. Looks like somebody even passed their hand on it to say, oh my God, look at this. We have to clean this up. But obviously, the quality of the air in the classroom is, how much air is coming in, how much air can exit, and so on. You can see there's probably been some water damage above this. You can see the peeling paint and so on. So this is just another thing you're talking about, not forgetting about things. Well, don't forget about how air comes into the classroom. Exactly. And don't forget about how air leaves the classroom and returns to the air handling unit. So this is just, something that's got to be, probably taken down, sprayed, with a water hose, scrubbed clean,
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just, again, I'm willing to bet there are people out there listening right now that it's tough to do it all.
Yeah.
The key is keep that schedule. If you have a schedule for the school year of that I'm checking air filters every 2 weeks, do it in the summer. I know it's harder because you're like, oh, summer's coming. I can, some people will take custodians from other schools and bring them in and do what we call, gang cleaning, where you get a whole group of people in and go to one building, get it done, and then leave. Well, the key is now what? That building's closed up now for the rest of the season. So make sure someone goes by there once a week. And I can't stress that enough. Don't forget.
And here's a few other things that need to be paid attention to. Of course, we're always concerned about lead paint. I know it's like maybe, for kids like 7 years and under, but we think, no one should be, exposed to any chipping paint or whatever. This has to be paid attention to. Of course, water damage will cause paint to chip. Faster than normally. And then, of course, you want to look at stained ceiling tiles. This is when a lot of them are replaced during the summer. And then, of course, the whole issue of the drain traps. These things are easily, I think, forgotten. But, in any place where you have a drain trap that's not used a lot, like a floor drain or maybe in a chemistry lab, you have to make sure that there's water in there in order to, make sure that you don't have hydrogen sulfide gas.
That's right.
Coming up. And I know there's a trick of putting some vegetable oil in there.
Well, you
keep it from. There's all kinds of tricks, but the important thing is to go around and make sure that they're working.
That's correct. Again, back to I'm going to sound like a broken record. Don't forget. Just like our custodial staff is asked to every Friday night, whatever area there is, make sure that they have a sink. They run a little water that Friday night, so the trap doesn't dry up. Floor drains. Put some water down the floor drain every Friday night. Just do it. It's on your schedule. So you've got to do that still. It still has to be maintained.
Yeah. Here we have a few more tips about, controlling.
What's that sign say?
What's that?
Pick up after yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Your mother doesn't work here. Clean up after yourself.
That's probably the most important tip right there. If we all did that.
Yes, exactly.
But, classroom clutter, art supplies, making sure they're stored. I would say during the summertime, make sure that anything that has VOCs, any kind of chemical products, cleaning supplies, art supplies, make sure those things are really sealed up.
Stored properly.
Stored properly. Exactly.
Most of what I know, we have to put all of our chemicals, especially in our science labs, into vented cabinets. All the schools have them. Maybe, again, the older schools you might have to buy one. I know at the middle school we actually bought a portable one.
Yeah.
And it works great, but that's where we store the chemicals. So, yeah, sealed properly. This shouldn't be for the summer. Again,
this is a year-round thing.
Well, it's that housekeeping. Again, if we get it done once a year, summer is a great time to do it.
Right.
If custodial and maintenance staff do not have to work around this during the summer, it's going to be a lot easier for them to make sure that they're not leaving moisture behind and that they're getting things cleaned. So it's that stressing that as much housekeeping that can happen at the end of the school year is going to pay dividends for the whole
school community. And I think in particular, from EPA's point of view and like asthma triggers in the classroom and so on, we really are concerned about the vulnerable population. The kids who have asthma,
Absolutely.
The teachers who have, asthma, those who have other kind of respiratory, issues and so on. We have to really make sure that, our schools, both public and private, are really, models to the community for good indoor air quality, good environmental health.
Exactly.
Parents entrust the schools, to have a good environment.
And putting their kids there for 6-7 hours a day.
Exactly. So
and the same with the staff. It's all
even longer. Yeah.
You hear us say, "Oh, the teacher should do this and the teacher should do that," but it's all that part of the community. It's for everybody's benefit, like you were saying, Gene. It's to do this is it's gonna. We're here to educate the children. And that's our job.
Exactly.
People say to me a lot of times, what's your job description? And I say it's to keep a clean, safe, healthy environment for students, staff, and public. That's my job description. All the rest of it is tasks. It's what we do every day.
That's right. Well, these are the tasks.
These are the tasks that we need to do to help us get our summer working, so we can get.
And I do want to point out, from a liability standpoint, there are safety issues here for janitorial staff if they have to come in contact with these chemicals in a art classroom or a science classroom where they haven't been trained properly maybe to handle sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid. So those are things where it becomes increasingly important for the teachers to participate in the cleanup process so that, hey, accidentally a janitorial staff custodian knocks over one of these chemicals and it produces a toxic environment for
You never know.
that staff member. So
Yeah. And I just want to point out this last tip here about check windows and doors for breaks and air leaks. I mean, maybe the summertime is a time when people do like maybe blower door tests to see if you're actually getting, like when it's the heating season, of course, you don't want to lose a lot of the heat outside and so on. Make sure that the ventilation system is working properly. Check windows and doors to just get, I guess, a feel for how the school is doing in terms of the air exchange rate. Because, I mean, I think schools are also in charge. It's important that they save money. I mean, not only
absolutely.
protect the environment, but leaky doors and leaky windows, I mean, that's a big expense.
It is.
And so I think this is something that maybe is worth looking at during the summertime as well. I think this might be one of our last slides here, but this is, time to look at carpeting, especially around water fountains, in low-lying areas in the building or any area of the school where you do have moisture problems, and to look at the carpeting there and see, do we really need carpeting in the basement of the school? Of course, to look at new equipment. You were talking about that earlier, Peter, about things that are quiet, energy efficient, durable, and really does the job.
Yeah, and when we're talking about carpet here, the newer carpet extraction equipments that they have, they're very, very low moisture.
Mm-hmm.
The equipment that we use here in Concord, we have some old stuff that
Yeah.
needs to be maintained, and again, we don't have a money tree to pick it off of and go buy all this new equipment. But if you have the opportunity to purchase new equipment, or you're thinking about it, or whoever you need to go to the business administrators and talk to about this, that a newer piece of equipment is going to give you better moisture control. It's going to dry quicker,
Mm-hmm.
so you're going to be able to be more effective and efficient when you as the worker for the labor, and then you're also not putting that moisture into the carpet that's going to take a lot of energy
Mm-hmm.
to get it out of.
So also you're saving money. I mean,
Absolutely,
newer equipment,
absolutely, you're saving
better
money.
for the environment, fewer, man hours or whatever being expended
Exactly.
to clean it. It's
And the low moisture is key, and it works. And
Yeah.
because that's the key. Excuse me. That a lot of people will say, well, it's not, it doesn't work right. I
Mhm.
get that a lot, and so you have to spend that time to research the products that you have. So if you're the person that's tasked with buying equipment or training your custodial staff and your maintenance staff, be very knowledgeable about it.
Mhm.
Go, and vendors and manufacturers will help you with this stuff. They all know that indoor air quality and energy efficiency and all that is what's on everybody's mind right now.
Mhm.
So you really research the equipment, be able to say, here's the fact sheets. I'm going to demonstrate it for you. It
Mhm.
did clean the carpet. You can nail on it in 15 minutes and barely get your knees wet. That's what you want to be able to do. So,
Wow, great. Well, here's some resources. There's my name and number. You can certainly give me a call if you have any questions about indoor air quality, in general or with schools. Work with asthma as well. If you want to get a copy of the kit, you can call this 800 number. That's basically our EPA document clearinghouse. And here is the website for our New Hampshire Partners for Healthy Schools. It has a lot of good information there about the legislation and also the checklist that we're asking schools to fill out and submit to the Department of Education and so on. And
before we take questions and answers, what we do want to send along to you, and I'm going to send it right now. If you check in your question box, you'll see the SurveyMonkey survey. So if for those of you that need to go and don't have time to stick around for questions and answers, we just kindly ask you that you take a moment to fill out that survey and provide us your feedback on today's presentation. We like to hear both the good and your constructive criticism as well, because it helps us to better serve you moving forward into the future. This is a time for you to submit your questions and questions to us, and we'll provide you the answers. We're going to start with the first question. Actually, before I get to that, just want to remind you also, a copy of this presentation will be emailed to you within the next 48 to 72 hours. So just keep an eye on your email, and you'll actually get a copy of this presentation. And then also a recorded version of this will be available after as well. So now, questions and answers. So first question comes from Barbara Osowski, and she says, what about box fans for carpet cleaning versus running air handlers? Both have costs. Do box fans dry carpet quicker as airflow can be more direct to carpet? So they're basically saying the box fans, because they provide direct airflow directly to the carpet, are they the better option versus using the air handlers?
That's a good question.
It is good.
Barbara. What I would say, this is Peter, by the way, what I would do is a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Because what will happen, the box fans will take the moisture quicker out of the carpet, but it's just going to put it into the air. And if you have the option for both, try to run a little bit on each. If not, the box fans with windows open, and again, only run them when there's people that can check them. Don't leave them overnight and close the door. That's just an issue that I've run into, that a box fan or a carpet drying blower, we use them all the time, but I ask my staff to shut them off at the end of the day and close the windows, and again, really try to, the key is controlling the amount of moisture you put into your carpet.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. I think a little bit of both would be my answer.
I like your answer, because I mean the box fans will dry the carpet like locally, but you need to have like the ventilation system operating to remove the moisture from the school, because you don't want to have that moisture just sitting in the school building. I mean, you want to be able to just dry out the school, and even when the fan box is not operating, I mean, the general ventilation, with lower humidity will be sort of drying it out.
And I
but
think
for a
that's
quick dry.
Excuse me. Also, watch that humidity level on the outside when you're doing carpets. And I know that's very, very difficult to do, because here in New Hampshire we can have some pretty humid days in July and August. So it's really hard to do that. But if you can get away with it, just don't wet your carpets on very high humidity days.
So they should pay attention to the weather.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're like planning to do it tomorrow, check the weather forecast. If it looks like a nice dry day, well, maybe you can get away with it. But if it's,
and I know reality is you got to get the carpets done. So I would do a little bit of both. Would be the answer to my question. That question for me.
Yeah.
So my understanding is if you work in maintenance and custodial staff, you essentially become an amateur meteorologist.
Yeah,
you have to keep track of
Yeah.
what the environment's doing in order for you to properly do your job.
You do. Yes, you do.
And I think it's important to think twice about even doing that, like during the summer. I mean, if it's like during the summer, I mean, it's important, I know, to clean up the school. Maybe dry vacuuming is the way to go, like just during the summer when you don't have the occupancy. And then when school starts up, you start having those nice fall crisp days with low humidity, maybe like a few days before school starts. That might be a time to really clean up the carpeting. When it's, it works out weather-wise, low humidity.
It's very difficult to get that schedule, because it's just people have to get it done. So.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions out there, this concludes today's webinar. There will be future webinars coming up in the future. If you have any in the near future, we'll have another one in September. If you'd like to provide us with any suggestions, we have another question. But if you want to provide us with any suggestions for future webinars, please do put them submitted into the question box, and we'll gladly take those and consider those for future webinars. Next question is, what do you do if you were in a small office and there is an air conditioner in the only window?
You mean like an office, like in the school, like an administrator?
Yeah, like probably a principal's office or a guidance counselor's office.
Mm-hmm.
If the air conditioner has just a fan function on it,
and
you're doing carpets, I would put it on just the fan.
Okay. So if you're trying to dry carpet in that small room, then the best thing to do is just put it in fan mode only.
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Although the air conditioner too, I mean, it does dry out the air. I mean, I think what you want to do is make sure you operate it so that, I mean, you know, that the carpet is dry to the touch when it's done. So.
All right.
And if I just add one more point,
Please do.
what Tim was saying about the next webinar, I mean, I feel, you know, we're doing these webinars really as a service to, you know, school personnel, you know, throughout New Hampshire. And, you know, if you feel there's a topic that, you know, you would like to know more about, I mean, we welcome your suggestions. I mean, we have a lot of resources, you know, in this state, and together with, you know, EPA, you know, we would certainly be very interested in, you know, entertaining that, you know, topic, bringing together the experts that we have, and talking more about it. So, so by all means, you know, let us know. Send us an email, or, you know, call me, and we'll get the ball rolling with that.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. We wish you a wonderful and productive summer. Again, keep your eyes open for the copy of the presentation as well as the link for the recorded presentation. Feel free to share with others. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.